dark at this time.
Episode 36, your double E, Ina Esco. Thank you so much for listening today. And I have with me Dr. Wendy Marie Laybourne. You may know her as Wendy Marie on all your socials. Hey, Wendy.
Hey.
How you doing, lady?
I'm great. Glad to be here.
Yes, I saw you at the kickback a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, hey, I'm going to see you in a couple of more weeks. So I'm so excited that you are here. And we actually met a few years back before you left to go to Maryland and get your PhD. Which club was it called at that point? I'm trying to remember.
Probably level 2.
It was level 2.
Yes.
It was level 2. I think it was Sue's birthday or something like that.
Probably.
Yeah. And I remember that's when we first met, and then you went away. You went away to pursue your PhD. So congratulations on receiving it. How does it feel?
It feels really good. Like all those years of work, oh my goodness, and to finally have it completed and to be working at a university, it feels really good. And I have wanted my PhD since I was in undergrad, so it's been a long, long time coming.
So you always knew you wanted to pursue that?
Not always. So when I went to undergrad, which was at the University of Memphis, I had no idea what I wanted to quote unquote be when I grew up, but I just knew I had to go to college, so I went on and went. And I just took a lot of classes that interested me, and they ended up being sociology. And so by the time, it's getting close to graduation, I was like, you know what? I love everything I've learned. This might be a career for me, teaching, working in higher education. And so that's when that seed was planted, definitely.
Okay, so let's take a step back a bit. I know that you're currently back in Memphis and working at your alma mater as a doctor of sociology. And when I think of sociology, I think of like the study of how humans interact with each other. That's kind of like the textbook definition, right? So describe your current role as a doctor of sociology.
So I'm an assistant professor, which is like the position or the rank of the position at the University of Memphis. And you're absolutely right. Sociology is like the study of human behavior, the study of society, and a big focus on social inequality. So not only what people are doing and what kind of shapes our society, but kind of how is our society unequal, and what does that look like across different groups of people. So at the university, I'm currently teaching a racial and ethnic minorities class. So it's an undergraduate class, and we delve into a lot of racial and ethnic inequality, as you can imagine. And so my specialty area is race and ethnicity. So the classes that I will primarily teach will have something to do in some shape, form, or fashion with race and ethnicity, whether that is inequality or identity development or anything along those lines.
I know that growing up, you were actually adopted. Mm-hmm. So tell us about that when you were adopted and the family that you grew up with.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am Korean American, for folks who don't know. So I was born in Korea, and then I was adopted when I was 4 months old by a white American family. And so kind of over time or worldwide, we can think about how Korean adoption started after the Korean War, so in the early 1950s. And since then, almost 200,000 Korean children have been adopted to U.S. families. And so my mom and dad decided that they wanted to live in Memphis when it was time to kind of like put down roots. And so I have family on my mom's side that's from this area, and that's why they wanted to live here. But growing up, I never knew there were other adopted people. I didn't meet another adoptee until I was in college, actually, until I was like my freshman year in college.
Did your parents tell you were adopted?
Yes, and it was pretty obvious.
At a very young age?
Yes. So I think, with international and also cross-racial or transracial adoption, it's pretty obvious that something is different. Just like you look at yourself in the mirror and like, okay, I look like this. And you look at your parents and you're like, we don't look alike. What's going on? And you see families around you and they all look same race.
Now, when you graduated, you were a case manager.
I was.
So how did that happen? Like, I guess you had a sociology degree. That's what you wanted to do.
Well, like I said, I wanted to get my PhD in sociology. sociology. So like my senior year in undergrad, I was applying to graduate programs, but I did not get accepted anywhere.
What?
No, ma'am. So I was heartbroken, but I also knew, like, you graduated college, you need a job.
Money.
Need to do something, some kind of work. And I always had a heart for children and families. And so I had put in my application at all these different agencies. And at that time, Hurricane Katrina hit. So, a lot of people had evacuated to Memphis, and different social services agencies ended up getting contracts to help those folks find housing, find jobs, etc. And so my application was already on file with a social services agency, and they called me and they're like, hey, we don't have anything with Department of Children's Services or Children and Families, but we have this other job. And I'm like, you have a job? Yes. The answer is yes.
I'm ready.
So that's actually how I first started. So after that contract ended, right, because it was just a temporary contract, I then joined the Department of Children's Services.
Oh, that's it.
So yes.
Okay.
So I did, so I transitioned over to the Department of Children's Services, and in that case, I was investigating alleged cases of child abuse.
Y'all go through a lot and look at some real deal situations, and what can you do? You just gotta follow the rules, right?
Yes. So that was very, like you said, it takes a toll on you. It can be very disheartening, and you can feel like, oh my goodness, what can I do, right? Because so the thing is, anyone can call into like the hotline and say, oh, I think my neighbor or whoever is abusing their child, right? So a lot of the cases we get are not substantiated, right? So no abuse is actually happening, which is a good thing. But then of course there are cases where there is actual child abuse happening, and then we try to give resources to the child, but also to the parents, and then it's a wide range of what might happen depending upon the severity of what's going on in the home.
I went through abuse growing up in Texas. My mom married this guy, and he was abusive towards her. It started with her, then it trickled down to me and my brother. And my brother was older than me, so he calling family members like, this is what's going on, and I'm just so young and like, I don't want to be away from my mom because I know that's what's going to end up happening. And it's just it's just tragic, the whole breakdown of the family. But I remember Department of Human Services getting involved, and you think about, dang, am I gonna go stay with the state? I want to stay with my grandmother.
Right.
Luckily, I stayed with my grandmother until my dad got custody, and that's how I ended up in Memphis. But it's just, from my friends to my own situation, the whole thing with social services is just, oh wow, it just seems like, a mind-blowing job. But I know you came to a point where I don't want to do this job anymore. And what did you do, Wendy?
Yeah, so at the same time, I was still applying to grad school because I was like, this is my goal. My 5-year plan, my 10-year plan.
You sticking to it.
Yes, I'm like, it's going to go just like this, which was not the case.
Right.
So I had been applying to grad school around the same time, year after year after year, and getting rejected year after year after year. And finally I had to come to terms with the fact that you are not going to get your PhD. At that time I was reading this book called The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. And I think a quote in that book is, everything is as it should be. And it's kind of cheesy, but at that time, it really released me from feeling so depressed about not getting into grad school. And I was like, you know what? This is what's supposed to happen. I don't know why. It's not my plan. But obviously, I need to let it go. So around that same time, a friend of mine called me at work and was like, hey, girl, the premiere is reopening and they're hiring 100 people. Let's go get a job. And I'm like,
you're like, what?
I already got a job. What are you talking about? What am I going to do at this club? And at that time, I don't think I had even ever really been to the premiere, right? Because I wasn't old enough at that time, when it was the place to be.
Honey. That was the spot. Okay.
But since I wasn't going to grad school and had no plans for my life anymore, I was like, why not? This is something I never thought I would do. Why not go work at the club? So that same day, I did. Drove up to what was becoming level 2 and put in my application, and I was like, I don't even know what job I can do in a nightclub. But I ended up getting hired to be a cocktail waitress. And I was like, okay, you know, something fun to do. Right, something fun to do on the weekend. All right, serve people drinks, like in the club. Sounds like a good time. But if you know me, you know that I am very uncoordinated. And so I quickly knew that I was like, oh no, this is not gonna work. I cannot be a cocktail waitress. I'm gonna holding the tray of drinks. I'm like, no, y'all just have to buy bottles. That's it, because I'm gonna drop everything. And so I was like, I kind of snuck over into my way to the training for the hostesses, because I was like, I can do that. You just stationary talking to people. And that's kind of how it started with me working at level 2, being a hostess. So VIP hostess, people reserve tables. I would, you know, get them through the VIP line, take them to their table, and then kind of like check on them throughout the evening to make sure everything was, you know, going okay, that type of thing. And so that's how it started. Still working in social services, working at the club on the weekend, not in grad school. And I ended up having so much fun at the club that I was like, you know what? This might be a new career for me. Right? Forget it. And so I approached my boss and I was like, so, do you have any full-time positions? Knowing good and well there are no full-time positions.
They created one for you, Wendy.
They did,
because
yes.
you were great at what you did.
Yes, ma'am. And so I was like, you know what? I'm young. Everything is as it should be. The world is my oyster. All this. So I was like, put my 2 weeks notice in at my, state agency job and went to work full-time at level 2.
Is that a business that you think that you would like to get back into?
No. No, ma'am.
It came to the turning point. Now you're headed to your schooling at University of Maryland for your PhD.
Mm-hmm.
And how did that all come about, Wendy?
So God had really put it on my heart, like, it's time for you to go, move on to the next, chapter of your life. And so I had started studying for the GRE because you still haven't seen it. Oh, it's terrible. So I started studying for the GRE, took it, did really well. Also, at the same time, I was blogging, food blogging.
Yes, blog, Wendy.
So I was blogging at that time at Wendy Eats. I'm now currently blogging at eateatread.com, but at that time, I quit working at the club. I was like, I'm gonna go into blogging full time. And this was kind of right on the cusp of when kind of blogging was starting to get big. So I was doing the food reviews, restaurant reviews, and I had also started doing videos, like doing short little video clips with chefs, restaurant owners, etc. And that was like the beginning of 2012.
Did you enjoy?
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I was like, this is it. I wasn't even worried anymore about the grad school thing because I was like, I love food blogging. I love to eat. I love to share all these local Memphis restaurants. In February of 2012, I got that letter.
Hallelujah. I was like, yes, I'm back on track.
Yes, I was like, oh my gosh. I remember opening in, it was an email. I remember opening my email and seeing like, we were pleased to, accept you. And I was like, oh my gosh, I cried real tears.
I know you did.
I was so excited. But it was also a really big step for me to go to grad school because I was really focused on the food blog. And I was like, transition in my mind to be like, this is what I'm gonna do full time. And so it was like, okay, but this is something you've wanted for years and years. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to grad school. And I knew based on the amount of time and effort it took to blog that I was not going to be able to do it and be in grad school at the same time. So I stopped the blog and I had a lot of regret about that. I really did.
Isn't it something how in life you get to a crossroads?
Yes.
And you have two major things that you've been wanting to do and you really love doing. You got to make that decision.
Yes.
And you made it.
I did. Yes, I did.
Now you're actually a published author.
Yes, ma'am.
So what is this for diversity and Black Greek letter organizations breaking the line? Tell me about this book.
Yes. Yes. So, in addition to the dissertation, I also did another research study while I was in graduate school. Yes. And so this was obviously about non-Black members of historically Black sororities and fraternities. So interviewing white, Asian, and Latino members of NPHC organizations. So people who are still in undergrad, who maybe just crossed, as well as people who are in grad chapters and who joined, their organization decades ago, to understand kind of what were their motivations for crossing the color line in this way. How did it impact how they thought about themselves and their own racial or ethnic identity, and then kind of what have been the long-term benefits of their membership and participation in their sorority or fraternity.
Was it, interesting, their interviews? Because that's very interesting.
Yes. So listening to everything that they had to say. So one, thinking about how did, whites, Asians, and Latinos even learn about Black group life, right? So that's kind of one thing. Contrary to maybe what you might think, a lot of these folks had never even heard of these sororities or fraternities prior to coming to undergrad, starting in college. So it wasn't like they had knew about it and were like, when I go to college, this is what I'm going to do, right? For them, their first exposure in most cases was at their undergraduate institution. The other thing that was really interesting was across the ages of these folks and across the institutions they went to, whether it was public, private, in the north, south, east, west, region of the U.S., all of them talked about a racial divide on their campus. That they felt that it was kind of white-black racial divide or, white, non-white racial divide. And for the Asian and Latino respondents that I talked to, they found themselves being lumped in together with kind of the non-white side, right? And feeling this kind of solidarity with other students of color, which really led them to want to learn more about Black group life. Even for the white respondents, even though obviously they were white, and they mentioned this racial divide, they found themselves still, questioning and wondering, like, why is this racial divide happening? What does it mean for me as a white person if I am being complicit in this culture on my campus? And it led them to really seek out social justice-oriented organizations, which Black group life is very much social justice-oriented. And so that's kind of some of the initial motivations for folks wanting to find these organizations and then become interested and become members.
You got a lot under your belt, Wendy. Well, Miss Sociologist, Professor Dr. Wendy Marie Laybourne, I have really enjoyed you, lady. I've learned so much today.
Thank you.
You are a breath of fresh air. Now, tell everyone how they can get in touch with you, follow you on social and your blog.
Yes, so on social, I'm Wendy Marie Only, so on Twitter and IG. And then, of course, the blog, eateatread.com. So all your local food reviews as well as book reviews.
Yes, and you got the new book coming real soon. Maybe
yes.
in a couple of years.
That's right.
Maybe sooner.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Miss Wendy Marie. I enjoyed you.
Thank you.
Verbally Effective, episode 36 in the books.
Please hang up and try again.